Centralpoint Data Transform. Centralpoint Data Transform tools are unique. You will not see them in any other technology. They are designed to put you in charge of indexing, ingesting data from multiple, siloed sources. These tools are designed to thread the needle, meaning to periodically scan all of your many silos of data to record where all of your records are. It is also able to scan the contents of each record and, where applicable, enrich the metadata associated. By doing so, Centralpoint is able to do more than simply pull a lot of disparate records into one place. It is able to relate disparate records together across these silos, based on your rules. Data Transform supports scheduled tasks. This means that you can run this against your siloed data periodically to index or ingest data from these sources. Here, you will see each routine which is currently set up to run, and when its next scheduled date is to check for new records. Centralpoint can even check the same collection of records daily, based upon the last modified date of these records, to only pick up what has changed since its last routine. Meaning, when listening to your data silos, Centralpoint is smart enough to determine only what has changed, and to record only those changes to those records, making it intelligent. We want to stress the word index as one of your options, as oftentimes you do not want to duplicate data. You merely want to scan the records to determine where they live, their access level, and enrich metadata for these records. In the scenario where we are indexing, we are leaving the data where it should live, but we are spidering the data, including the link which resolves back to the record where it actually lives. In this scenario, Centralpoint is giving you the control Google has to spider any location you want, and periodically. So, the way we see it, Centralpoint will be ingesting records, likely where your current systems are failing. You could call this migration, as we are taking them from some older system, which you may be sunsetting to live in Centralpoint as its new system of record. In other cases, where you are satisfied with your system, we will merely be indexing those records. Why would we do this? So that we can search all records, whether they have been indexed or ingested, in one central place. Or, should I say, one central point. The best part about Data Transform is that it supports both flavors of data, which are structured or unstructured. Structured data represents things like databases, SQL, Oracle, SharePoint, Office 365, IBM, Microsoft Access, Excel, CSV, XML, JSON, or even web services. Structured data is coming from systems, which already have it organized. Centralpoint also can work with unstructured data. An example of this might be files found in a shared drive or folder, nestled deeply in many subfolders, which might contain anything: PDFs, Word documents, images, videos, anything. Of the two different types of data, it's more impressive to work with unstructured data, as Centralpoint can ingest both the files and scan its content upon ingestion. This results in making typically non-searchable files, like PDF, fully indexed and searchable, once in Centralpoint. When you either open an existing data transfer routine or create a new one, you will see three tabs at the top: General, Source of Destination, and Fields. In essence, the General tab allows us to schedule how frequently this routine runs, or perhaps we need to upload a zipped file containing thousands of files. In this first example, we will upload a zipped file containing a number of records into Centralpoint. Next, we will click on the Source and Destination tab. In this tab, it is asking us to define where or what module in Centralpoint will be used to import these records into. We will select Generic Enhanced A, which is one of our content modules on the left. Now, here you will notice that Centralpoint knows what the source is. This is because we had just uploaded our zip file. This means that each routine you set up can pull from different and disparate sources to pull everything in from everywhere. Next, we will click on the Fields tab. This allows us to map very succinctly attributes about the fields into specific fields in Centralpoint. By clicking on Show Source Sample in the far top right of this screen, you will see a live view of the files we will be importing. So, this view is showing us all of the files found within our uploaded zip. We will map the title to title and instruct Centralpoint to not only bring the files in, but to perhaps scan any file, which can be, like PDF or Word. to prove the indexing of Centralpoint on its way in. Once we have mapped our fields, we will go to the bottom and click Save. Here, we will see Centralpoint come alive, where it is pulling in all of these files and giving us a progress report as it runs. We are seeing this now because we asked to execute it right now, but could have scheduled this to occur at midnight, and it wouldn't have run until that time. Now, if we go into our receiving module, you will see all of the files where we're imported in, and where we may have brought a PDF or Word file in. You will see it full contents or copy. This was extracted from each file during the actual import. This means these records can be searched by any characters or keywords found within the document. Let us go to the front end of the site to test our ability to search these documents. You may also notice that these files which came in inherited taxonomy, otherwise known as metadata. This is because certain words were found in each record which warranted this metadata should be applied. These rules are stored in Data Cleaner, which we will speak to later in this video. For our next routine, we will do something similar, but use an Excel spreadsheet. This is to demonstrate our ability to pull in specific data from rows or columns from within the Excel. Here, the Show Source Sample shows us all columns and rows from the Excel. So in this case, which is slightly different, we are isolating each row's data, column by column, into a Centralpoint module. This would be the same approach for virtually any type of structured data, like XML, CSV, text, of when mapping in fields from systems like SharePoint, Oracle, or other sources of data. Whilst mapping these fields, it is important to point out that the many CP script options to transform data can be found within the toolbox in the upper right of this view. Let's say we wanted to trim duplicates, or ignore null values, or restrict only those files which show a last modified date since the last scan. Here is where we are applying very granular rules to clean this data upon index or ingestion. Again, we see Centralpoint go to work to ingest these many records, but this time pulling in the specific rows and columns. This would be an example of structured data and how to preserve that. This means this structured data, now in Centralpoint, can be reported on or perhaps used to alert users via email alerts or texts of any incoming changes. This might also be a good example of where you need to homogenize information. Take for an example a client who had 8 different facilities, who each are storing certain records of their own. Here, Centralpoint could reach out daily to each of the 8 facilities, representing 8 separate data transfer routines, yet pulling the records from each into one module. Each routine setup would designate those records to, let's say, the main audience, as well as its respective facility audience. That would leave you with the ability to search all facilities' data in one location, yet give each location only access to their data upon login. There are many applications where you need to pick up, aggregate, and report on data in this way. Should you have many different facilities, franchisees, retail stores, or satellites, for an example. Visiting the module, or the front end of the site, shows the records ingested from the Excel spreadsheet. In our next example, we will do the same thing, but we will be picking up from some location on the internet, like a shared drive. This is similar to the zipped file we uploaded, but it will check this parent file folder daily and scan through all of the many subfolders underneath to pick up only new files which have been modified since the last time Centralpoint ran. This means no user needs to upload anything to Centralpoint, as it is smart enough to search, find, and ingest only those records which need to. Centralpoint also has the ability to maintain the original ID of each record. This means that if a record has changed subtly, we do not want to just replace the old record with the new one. We may need to ingest the new one on top of the old one, recording the version history of the 2 versions of this record, including what had changed between the 2 versions. This might be helpful in doing a side-by-side comparison of any record to see precisely who changed what and when within the record. Additionally, the file folders themselves or subfolders within the file path or directory might be used to help determine classification or taxonomy. This is because oftentimes the organization of files is placed in the title or name of the folders in which they live. In this case, we can look for, let's say, the name of a particular client in the folder name, and then apply all contents of that folder to a specific client ID. Since these data transform routines can be scheduled not only based on time, but to follow another previous routine, that means you can stack multiple transfers in sequential order to not only pull in data and disseminate it, but to then run another routine to do something else. In this example, we have a 4-part data transfer routine. The first routine will pull in Word documents to break them into pieces, based upon certain breaks or tags in the document. The subsequent routines might be looking to pull out and store only specific clauses or paragraphs. This is typically used when analyzing records, their similarities, and then replacing those similar clauses with a singular dynamic one. If we go to our modules, we will see the records which came in this case, MS Word documents, including which paragraphs were broken into their own fields. And then, if we analyze another module, you will see the subsequent data transfer routines took those photographs gleaned to store elsewhere. In the next example, we will ingest data from Microsoft SharePoint. Like connecting to any data source like a database or Office 365, here the credentials to access that system are required. Again, we are able to preview the available options with SharePoint to ingest these records. One very important field we were able to preserve in any instance is the ability to inherit the security roles of this document. This means anything ingested into Centralpoint can only be searched, found, and related for those which have matching security roles, preserving the digital rights management from the system we are ingesting into. Here are the records which came in from SharePoint. Please note how the metadata was enriched on their way in, and the files ingested are now fully searchable. This is helpful as SharePoint struggles with search based on their inability to fully index files, as well as offering only a limited structure of metadata. So, it is possible for Centralpoint to spider and index SharePoint to make its contents finally searchable. It is also possible for Centralpoint to ingest records from SharePoint to make them better via enriched metadata, only to have another transfer to put them right back into SharePoint. Why would you want to do this, you ask? To make SharePoint search better. In this scenario, Centralpoint can live next to SharePoint simply to help it work. In our next example, we will do the same thing, but against Office 365 in the cloud, specifically the Microsoft Azure cloud. Again, if you are wondering why we would do this, it's to relate all Office 365 records to perhaps other records in your ecosystem, and ultimately to make search work. Now we will look at the records ingested from Office 365, and you will again note that the records are fully indexed and have inherited enriched metadata based upon the rules found in Data Cleaner. This is data mining at its finest and results in auto-applied metadata, which thereby auto-relates your records to any other disparate record based on some kindred spirit between them. That relationships could anything including metadata, client ID, project ID, part ID, or employee ID. In our next example, we are going to ingest data from an XML or RSS feed, pulling in the latest news from CNN for an example. So, you are not limited to only your systems or silos of data. You can ingest anything from anywhere to build a real knowledge base which considers everything you want to. Centralpoint even has features to take screenshots of websites or of reporting charts and graphs. This is because a live chart cannot be included into a document or dynamic document collection, but a recent screenshot of that chart can. So, if you need to capture the most recent version of some data, which cannot be connected to, you can schedule the picture to be taken and collected, which could be used in the site, or to trigger an email alert to a user in which to notify. Data Transform makes you Google. It allows you to decide what should be indexed, what should be ingested, or screen scraped, and how often. This could be to give all of your users a true federated search considerate of their security roles and what they can access. In other cases, this could be used to store data from multiple agencies to generate dynamic reporting whenever it is needed, as Centralpoint does for the U.S. State Department. Here, we are answering 2 simple questions on a form, which will dynamically generate a briefing document, which contains everything we would want to know about particular countries and topics for our upcoming meeting. This report is really possible because of multiple data transform routines, which have been scheduled to run against over 26 different sources of data, thereby empowering the U.S. State Department to summon and output reports on anything they are interested in immediately. This helps to demonstrate one example of what automated data indexing, ingestion, and data mining can do for your organization. Data Transform, working in unison with Centralpoint Data Cleaner, allows you to enrich metadata or alter security classifications based upon your rules. This is because when pulling in siloed data from disparate sources, these records might not relate. In one system, they are tagged one way to designate a particular topic, and in another system, it is tagged a different way. Data Cleaner allows Centralpoint to look for either or both and homogenize the metadata between them. It can also be used to enrich metadata, looking for terms not found in either system to denote that it should still relate to a particular topic, maybe that is based on certain keywords found during ingestion. You will find many canned routines in Data Transform to act as your guide. Feel free to copy these to experiment with or try. These include at least one example for each data source you may need to work from. Data Transform also has a feature built in which allows Centralpoint to email you after each routine is ran, in which to give you a status update to how many records were indexed or ingested at that time. This is due to the fact that you may schedule these to run late at night or at a later time. In this way, you will be emailed when the routine is done. Oxcyon will set these up with you or for you during the initial build of your project. But moving forward, we would expect your team to become familiar with them, to set up and manage yourself. Data Transform is a powerful way to take control over big data and MDM, Master Data Management. Contact your sales associate or production manager for more information.